Give yourself a round of applause. You have made it through yet another week. Welcome back to Christ Culture, the podcast. I am Calvin, and I want to say thank you to all of you who are watching and supporting on a weekly basis. It means the world. Make sure you are subscribed and you follow all of our platforms. That's YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok. Make sure you're checking out the content that comes out throughout the week. Hit that notification bell so that you can be up to date on the content. And hey, if it's on your heart and you want to contribute further, you can donate at christculturepodcast.com/donate. That will help us out tremendously, help this content continue to be created. So again, I just want to say thank you. And let's go ahead and get into our weekly check-in. Every week we check in and see how things are going. This has been a week where a lesson that God taught me has become prevalent, and he has reminded me of it. And we're going to actually get into a lot of that during the topics today, so I won't share too much, but truly just like since Easter last week, the sermon at church and just like being in the place that I was and just really waiting for God to move to see what he's going to do. This has been the week where he's really reminded me of a principle that he taught me and how I truly have to be submitted to him and to be following the things that he's called me to do. So we'll get into that with today's topic, but that's really been this week for me. Many of you know I coach flag football outside of working the podcast and everything. So we had our first games this week that went well. The boys were able to get a win. So happy about that. Other than that, it was a really good week, and I can't complain. So I'm happy to be back. So last week I'm having a conversation with my mom and this topic comes up, and I wanted to kind of use that as a segue to get into the topic for today. So before I talk about the topic today, I'm gonna kind of set it up a bit. I was watching this movie that she was telling me about, and this movie is called Parallel. It's a pretty good movie, so you should go check it out. I forget which platform it's on, but it's called Parallel, and it's basically about this family who finds some gateways to parallel universes, and in each universe their family dynamic is slightly different, and it causes them to have to make some tough decisions. And the reason they have to make some tough decisions is because of a scientific principle that says that two things cannot occupy the same space at the same time. So if this is here, that can't also be in the exact same spot. It could be next to it, it can be around it, but it can't be in the same area. And so when they were going into these parallel universes, the issue that they were running into was basically two of them couldn't exist in the same universe. So kind of had to get rid of one of them. And that became a whole issue. So check the movie out. But that whole idea that two things can't occupy the same space at the same time really brought something up. And I was looking through my notes, and I actually wrote that specific fact down years ago. And I was just thinking about it. And as I was preparing for the episode, I was like, I think that's the direction I want to go in. And the reason that I want to go in that direction is because a lot of the times when it comes to us and God, we are kind of in that same space. There's what God wants us to do, what he's called us to do, what we know we should be doing. And there's what we want to do on a daily basis, what makes us happy, what brings us pleasure. And a lot of the times we're praying to him, we're asking him for things, we want our life to look a certain way, and that version of ourselves cannot occupy the same space as the current version of ourselves. And what we have to do is let go of what we want and what we think and all of those ideas and things about how we think things should be. And we have to let go of that, and we have to allow God's way to occupy that space. And so that kind of brought me into the topic for today. And that topic is obedience. And I just want you to think for a second, are you being obedient to what God has called you to do? And if you are, how obedient are you being? And the reason I ask that question is because a lot of the times I think that we kind of have to it, just to be totally honest. And we are kind of being obedient, but we're not being obedient all the way. And even for myself, I find myself in that space a lot of times with the things that God has called me to do. It's kind of that tug of war, right? It's like, hey, I'm going to dabble. This is what I mean by dabble. I'm going to dabble in those things that God has called me to do so that I can make myself feel better and make myself feel like I'm actually doing what he's called me to do and told me to do. But on the other side, I'm going to continue to do the things that I want to do and the things that I want to pursue, or vice versa. Maybe you're saying, oh yeah, I'm focused on what God has called me to do and I'm doing those things and I'm walking in those things on a daily basis. But on the side, I'm going to dabble in the things that I want to dabble in. I'm going to dabble in the drinking. I'm going to dabble in the smoking. I'm going to dabble in the other vices. And you kind of getting pulled in two directions, what he says and what he wants and what he's called you to do. And those things that, as a human that you want in your own desires. And that can be difficult, right? Because he has given us free will and we do have the right to choose, and we don't always get it right. But I once heard somebody say something that was so interesting to me and it stuck with me all this time. And that was the simple fact that submission is not submission until it feels like submission. And the reason that stuck with me so much is because it's easy for us to say that we are submitted to somebody, whether that be a wife being submitted to a husband, whether that be, the husband saying he's committed to God, whether that be anybody saying they're committed to God, whether it's a child being submitted to their parents, whatever the case is, it's easy to say that you're submitted to something or to someone as long as what they are asking of you is okay with you. If they're telling you to take 5 steps forward, take 4 steps to the right, as long as you don't see any obstacles, as long as nothing gets in your way, as long as you're not hurting, as long as it doesn't look dangerous, you have no issue doing what they ask you to do. But when submission truly becomes submission is when they ask you to take 5 steps forward and 4 steps to the side. And after you take those first few steps, you look to the side and you say, there's a big puddle right there. And I know God told me to take steps to the right, but I don't want to step in that puddle. So what do? That's when we start getting in our own will and our own way and saying, well, he said take steps to the right. So maybe what I'll do, I'll take 2 more steps forward and then I'll take 2 steps to the right so that I don't have to stand in the puddle. And that's often what we do when we call ourselves submitted to God and submitted to his will. We're kind of submitted until something comes up that we don't like, that doesn't make us feel good, that we feel like we can't see what's coming next. And then all of a sudden we start to construe that submission. And we start to kind of insert our own things into that submission to make it seem like, yeah, I'm submitted, but I'm still kind of doing it the way that I want to do it, the way that makes me feel comfortable and okay. And we have to ask ourselves, are we truly submitted to what God is telling us to do? And are we truly going to be obedient to what he's called us to do and what he's telling us to do each time? Because the truth of the matter is, if God tells you to take 4 steps forward and 2 steps to the side, and you start moving forward and you look to the side and you see that puddle there, well, that's when faith comes into play, because we all know that the Bible tells us that faith comes by hearing. And the reason it says that is because if you trust only what you see and not what you're hearing from God, then you're less likely to be obedient to what he's telling you to do. So he's telling you to take those 2 steps to the right, but you see the puddle. And all you're worried about is standing in that puddle and your feet being wet, and you don't understand why he's telling you to do it. But that's why you have to trust what you hear. Faith cometh by hearing. So you have to hear what he tells you to do and do those things, because what you don't know is that while you can see the puddle right next to you, God can see the entire street. And God knows that there's a car coming. And he knows that if you don't take 2 steps right, maybe you might get hit by that car. And so he tells you to take 2 steps right and stand in the puddle because he'd rather you have wet feet than to lose your life. And for us, a lot of the times that's so difficult because we can only see what's right in front of us. We don't have that view, that overview, that Google Maps view that God has. And that's why it's so important to trust what he's telling you to do and trust what you're hearing and not just what you see. And I know that can be difficult because a lot of the times in the situations in our lives, what you're seeing does not look good. And you're trying to make decisions off what you see. And although you hear God saying certain things and calling you to do certain things, you're like, yeah, but my situation doesn't look like that's a good thing for me to do right now. And so how do I do that? Um, and some time ago, maybe 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago, I've already mentioned on other episodes that I decided to leave my job. But one of the main reasons that I decided to go ahead and to leave, I don't think I've actually shared this with anybody yet, but during that time, I'm always praying to God, for many years, I've been praying to God about things that I want him to do through me for my family. And, a lot of those things like, creating generational wealth and, just putting our family in a position that it's never been in any of the generations that I've, known or heard about. And, just moving up the corporate ladder, looking for different jobs, making more money, and doing those things and having a certain lifestyle in mind and a certain way of living and a certain level of income that will allow me to do things for my family and to put us in certain positions. And um, right when I was getting ready and kind of battling with the job that I was in, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm making more money, so I guess I'm moving towards my goals. And one day, plain as day, God just said something to me that kind of humbled me and shook me and just really stuck with me. And basically what he told me was the lifestyle that you want, the things that you're praying for are never going to come as a result of a job. They're never going to come as a result of how much you work. They're never going to come as a result of what you're doing on a daily basis, what company you're with, what position you hold. What you're looking for is only going to come as a result of you being obedient to me. And that hit me so hard because I'm like, okay, like just to be real, like God, I know you've called me to minister. I know you've called me to put, to teach and to put your word out into the world. I know you've called me to speak to the masses. Like I understand that, and I'm doing that to the best of my abilities. The issue is that I can't see how that translate to what it is that I'm praying for. And that goes right back to what we were just talking about. Faith cometh by hearing. And I kind of got to the place where it was like, I'm just going to have to trust what I'm hearing him telling me to do. He's telling me to focus on the ministry and focus on doing those things that he's called me to do and not get so caught up in what I'm seeing right in front of me. And it's very difficult because it's like, hey, if I leave this job, how does this happen? And how does that happen? And what am I going to do? And how are things going to work out? And he's like, either you trust me or you don't trust me. It's not half in, half out. It's not you trust me when you see a way. It's you trust me and you're going to be obedient to what I'm telling you to do. And I kind of got to that place and I was like, okay, in this season of my life, I'm just going to try to be obedient. And even if I don't see or understand how things are going to happen, I'm just going to be obedient to what he's telling me to do. And when he spoke to me and told me like, hey, what you want is only going to come as a result of your obedience, it just really made me think of how many times all of us are praying and asking for things and we think it's going to come to us in a certain way. And we think God is going to move in a certain way and it's going to look a certain way. And not only do we pray to him and ask him for something, but we also have in mind how that thing is going to happen, how he's going to do that thing for us. And most of the time, it's not going to look like that. And that's why we truly have to just be obedient to what he's called us to do and what he's telling us to do. And even, like I said, even if it doesn't look like, because I know for myself, even to this day, I still don't understand how me focusing on ministry and me speaking the word of God and me doing these things is going to help get to that place that I want for my family financially and otherwise. But I have to, again, trust what I heard him say and not just trust what I'm seeing in front of me and try to take control of things and do things in my own will. And analogy incoming. You always know it's an analogy coming. the thing that I kind of saw was, I want you to, for a moment, imagine yourself as a child, right? And as a child, we always go to our parents and we ask them for things. So I want you to imagine you're a child and you're going to your parents and you're asking for something. And I want you to parallel that with us going to God and asking him for something. So imagine you're a child and you go up to your dad and you ask your dad, hey, Dad, I like a cake. I like some cake. And your dad's like, okay, I can do that. We can get you some cake. And then right after that, he says, okay, what I need you to do is go to the fridge and get me some eggs. And as a kid, you're like, maybe I should remind him that I asked him for cake. I didn't ask him for eggs. Although I like eggs in the morning for breakfast. Right now, I want some cake. I don't want any eggs. And that's how we are with God. It's like we ask him for something and then he tells us to do something or to be obedient in a certain way. And the first thing that we do is say, hey, God, what you're asking me to do, I don't understand how that turns into what I prayed to you for. And what we have to remember is, just because we have an idea in mind, God is not constrained by the idea of how we thought something was going to happen. He does not have to answer your prayer in the way that you thought your prayer was going to be answered. He is not constrained to that box. So although you're asking him for something and you think it's going to happen in a certain way, he doesn't have to answer your prayer in that way. And so a lot of times we go to him and we ask him for something, and just like asking for that cake, in our mind, when we go ask our dad for cake, he says, okay, he goes to the store, he buys us some cake, and then he brings it home, and now we have cake. And just like in that way, we have our plans and we think, when I ask God for this, then he's going to do it this way, and he's going to give it to me in that way. And instead, God is asking us to do stuff like, go get me eggs and go get me flour. And we're like, but God, that doesn't look like what I asked you for. And so then we have choices to make. Do we be obedient and do what he's telling us to do and trust him more than trust what we see? Again, trusting what we hear him telling us to do more than what we see him or see in front of us. We have to make that decision. And a lot of the times what we do is we end up abandoning what we asked for in the first place. And we say, okay, you know what, Dad, don't worry about it. I asked you for cake. I don't understand what eggs and flour have to do with cake. So what I'll do is I'll just go and I'll start a lemonade stand and I'll get a couple of dollars, and then I'll go to the store myself and I'll buy me one of those little Debbie cakes, and then it'll all be good. And we try to take things into our own hands and do it our own way. But again, we have to remember that God has that Google Maps view. He can see it all. And he's not constrained to answer our prayer the way that we think. So we should make the decision to simply be obedient to him and go to the fridge and get the eggs and get the flour when he asks and preheat the oven when he asks. And then as a result of your obedience, there's going to come a moment where you're going to start to smell the aroma of your answered prayer. You're going to start to smell the aroma of what it is that you asked God for in the first place. And a lot of the times that's how God works with us, is he does it in a way that our minds cannot comprehend or see. And I'm learning in this season that when he tells me to go get eggs, just go get eggs. It doesn't matter what I think about the eggs. It doesn't matter if I know what the eggs are going to do. Just go do what he told you to do. Go get the eggs, go get the flour, go get the sugar, preheat the oven, and allow him to work things for your good. Because what I'm seeing in this season is I'm seeing all of the different things that he's telling me to do and to be obedient to coming together to answer prayers that I've prayed to him before. And so as a result of our obedience, obviously, just like in the analogy, at some point, the parent, prepares a cake for us. And now we see, okay, I had an idea of where the cake would come from. But my parent understands how to make a cake. And not only that, but the parent understands that the store-bought cake is going to have a bunch of stuff and a bunch of chemicals and things in it that you don't need and that are not good for you. And so their answer to your prayer is not only to provide what you asked for, but to provide a superior version of what you asked for. Something that they know is actually going to be better for you than what you had in mind for yourself. And I think that's the ultimate testament to how your obedience can lead to your prayers being answered and lead to those things which you've asked God for. So just be obedient to him and trust what it is that he's telling you to do, even if it looks weird, even if you don't understand what all these different ingredients are going to add up to. Just do what he's telling you to do. And at some point, you're going to be sitting down and enjoying that cake of your answered prayer. So I hope that helps somebody. Be obedient in this season and see what God has in store for you. Go ahead and get into some questions today. We got some questions pertaining to the topic of obedience. So let's go ahead and see if we can work through them. First question says, how can I stay obedient when I don't feel like God is answering my prayers? Good question. I think the first thing that we have to do is to get rid of expectations of how that prayer is going to be answered, where it's going to come from, who it's going to come through. Because a lot of the times we think the prayer is not being answered because it doesn't look like what we thought it was going to look like. So we're sitting here praying for, wealth and to get rich, and we think that's going to come through us winning the lottery. So when we scratch the ticket off and we lose, then we say, my prayer hasn't been answered. When instead God is trying to teach you how to build generational wealth through various mediums in your life. And you don't understand that, down the road, those things are going to come to fruition and you're going to be able to build that wealth that you're looking for. But because it doesn't look like what you thought it was going to look like, we abandon God and we say he's not answering our prayer. So I think the first thing is just get rid of your expectations of what and how that prayer is going to be answered. The other thing is, I think we have to get rid of timelines, right? Just because your prayer hasn't been answered yet doesn't mean it's not going to be answered. And we have to remember that God does not work on our time. He's not constrained by our time, and he does not have to do it when we think it has to be done. And when we see deadlines, that does not mean that God sees a deadline and he thinks that it needs to be done at the same time. So it could just be that your prayer is not being answered yet. And then the last thing I'll say is evaluate whether or not what you're praying to God for is actually good for you, because again, God can see the beginning from the end. So sometimes he doesn't answer your prayer because he knows it's not good for you. And I know even in my own life, there were times where I wanted something so bad and I was praying to God for it. And in hindsight, I'm looking back at things just saying like, thank God you didn't answer that prayer. Thank God you didn't give that thing to me because it would not have been good for me. So evaluate whether or not what you're praying for is actually good for you. And you may not have the knowledge of whether or not it's good for you. So you just have to trust God and trust in his timing and trust in him that he knows what's best for you. Let's see. What do I do when I know what God is asking of me, but it feels too hard? The first thing I'll say is just continue to be obedient, just like we talked about. And just because something feels hard does not mean it's impossible. And also remember that whatever God has called you to do and whatever he's asking you to do, he's already put inside of you what you need to accomplish it. Some of the hardest things that I've gone through in my life, I woke up every day and told myself, I can't do this anymore. And yet I found myself doing it every day and continuing to push every day. And that's because the strength comes from God. So his strength is made perfect in our weakness. So even if you feel weak and you feel like you can't do it, you can remember that those are the moments where his strength is going to take over. And he already knows that you have inside of you what you need to conquer whatever that thing is. So just keep pushing forward and rely on him and his strength rather than your own. And remember this, a lot of the times it's on the other side of those hard things that the most growth comes. And the biggest leaps in life come on the other side of hardship. So just keep pushing and get through it, and it'll all work out for you on the other side. Last question we'll do here. It says, What should I do if I failed to obey God in the past? Can he still use me? Yes, yes, he can. God can use and will use and does use whomever he wants to, whenever he wants to. Um, that includes you. So if in the past, God was calling you to do something and he told you to do something and you did not do it, that does not mean that you are now exiled from being used in the kingdom of God. He can still use you. And the thing that I'll say is you just need to evaluate whether or not he's calling you still to do those things. And if he is, then you start to do them now. And if he's calling you to do something else now, then do those things, but stay faithful to him, and just get back up on that horse and start to move forward. He can still use you. And if you become a willing vessel, he will use you in the kingdom. So the answer to your question is yes, he can. It's time for my favorite segment, The Perfect Brew, where we try to create the perfect brew just for you, a tailored response to something you are dealing with or going through in your life. So I'm going to roll the intro and then we will jump right into it. Welcome to The Perfect Brew. This is the segment where we try to take people's issues and things that they are dealing with in their own life, and we try to create that tailored response, that perfect brew, just like that perfect cup of coffee, just for them. If you want to be featured on this, you can send us a DM, leave a comment, or send us an email, and we will feature you on this segment of the show. So without further ado, I am going to read today's order. It says, I'm the oldest of 4 siblings. Ever since our mom passed away a few years ago, I've kind of taken on the unofficial parent role. I handle everything like get-togethers, checking on everyone, and helping with bills if somebody's struggling. But lately, it's starting to feel really heavy. I don't feel appreciated, and sometimes I think they just expect me to be the one holding everything together. I love my family. I'm tired. How do I set boundaries without causing drama or making them think I don't care? It's going to seem a little harsh, but I'm going to say you need to let them grow up. And the only way that they're going to grow up is if you step back and stop doing everything for them and stop handling all those responsibilities. Because as long as you're doing it, they're going to let you do it. So one of the things that you need to do is just take a step back in this season, focus on yourself, because the truth of the matter is you can't be what they need you to be or what you want to be for them sometimes if you're not together yourself. You can't pour out if you don't have within you. So focus on yourself a little bit more, focus on doing things that make you happy so you don't wake up, 20, 30 years from now and you're like, I spent my whole life worried about other people, trying to help other people live their best lives, and I didn't live my best life. So be there for them, be family, because from what I'm gathering from what you said, it seems like they're all adults now too. And if they're adults, then they need to learn how to take care of themselves. And the only way they're going to do that is if you take a step back. And there may be a season where they're a little upset with you and they're a little angry with you and they're a little mad because, they're used to you doing certain things. And this is what I'll tell you is that if they're not appreciating you and it seems like they don't appreciate you, it's probably because you're good at what you're doing. You're good at holding everything together and you're consistent, and so they begin to kind of take that for granted. So don't worry about that. I read a book earlier this year called Let Them, and it's all about this theory of let them. And when people want to do things, say things, or act a certain way, you let them do that. And you worry about what you can control and worry about your own responses. And I think that's a good thing for you in the season, is to however they react to you taking care of yourself and doing more things for yourself, let them. Focus on you, focus on what you need, focus on pouring into you, your mental health, and let them grow up, because if you take a step back, they'll be forced to do that. So I hope this was the perfect brew just for you. I hope that response helps you. And I hope that, you find some reprieve in this season. Again, if you want to be featured on this episode, send us your issue or your problem or what you're dealing with in your life, and we will try to create that perfect brew just for you. Hope you enjoyed that segment. Now let's get into our final segment of the day, SOS. That is subject on the spot. I will be given a random subject and 60 seconds to come up with a little message on it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and pull up the app that's going to generate a random topic for us. And today's topic is chairs. Oh, no, I always show y'all that like you can see it, but I don't think you can see it. Chairs. So let me pull up a timer and let me go quick so I'm not cheating. And we will get started in 3, 2, 1, go. Chairs. Chairs are the things that we sit on every day. They hold us up. There are different types of chairs. And the thing about a chair is that sometimes we can forget how much a chair is actually doing for us. If I wasn't sitting on a chair right now, I would fall to the ground and I would be, captured by the effects of gravity. But because of the chair, I am able to sit up. I'm able to have a seat at the table. And I liken that to our relationship with God. And sometimes we can forget how much God is doing for us. We can forget that he gives us a seat at the table, that he is holding us up on a daily basis, because we don't always see him and we don't always see him working, and we forget that he's there. But in this season, I think that we need to remember how much God is doing for us, give him thanks and glory for who he is and what he's doing, even when we can't see it, and don't take him for granted. Remember that he gives us that seat at the table and that he keeps us uplifted, and keeps us going. So remember God in the season and give him thanks. Whew. I feel like those are getting harder for me. Just like that, another episode in the books. I hope something that was said today helps you. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on this content if you like it. Share this with somebody else. Send it to somebody right now that can use this message. And make sure you follow us on all of our platforms so you can stay up to date on our content. Have a good and a blessed week, and we will see you next week. Same time, same place.